Women are powerful creators. The Align Women podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Amy Evans. I have authentic, intimate conversations with my guests that highlight their paths to success, their struggles and accomplishments, and the things that currently excite, motivate, and inspire them to turn their visions into reality. Welcome to the Align Women podcast. I'm Amy Evans, your host and the founder of Align Women, a leadership and networking organization for professional women. This podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. With me today is Dana Dattola. She's a third-generation owner of Weaver & Associates, a boutique property and casualty insurance brokerage that helps privately owned, growth-oriented Southern California-based businesses and individuals with their insurance and risk management needs since 1959. And you may notice she doesn't look like she's been around since 1959. She's actually a unicorn in this business. She is third generation and now the owner of a firm that her grandparents started. I'm so excited to have her on the podcast. Welcome, Dana.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about the new energy that you bring to a very old industry. One of the ways that energy shows itself is in some of the technological innovations that you've put in place for your firm. And there are two of them that I want to talk with you about. One of them is a video series that you're doing for your workers' comp clients. And one of them is an online platform that you've created for workers' comp renewals. Tell me about those and how they've really revolutionized the way that you take care of your clients.
Yeah. Insurance, if you are on the buying end of commercial insurance, it can be a very painful process. Historically, what it means is every year, a couple months before your renewal, you get, here's a copy of the application you filled out last year. Here's a copy of the blank one. Please fill it out. We need all this updates. And then we'll go out to market and shop. And it's just kind of the same old. And that is cumbersome. And we are constantly following up for updates from people. So that was like a problem we had, and we were trying to figure out a solution. So we rolled it out in the last year, and it's been fantastic. A new kind of like an online application. So it's pre-filled. Our clients can fill it out on their phone. It already has all of last year's information. So they're not digging up like, what did I answer on this question last year? How did I do this? So that's one thing we've done from a technology standpoint. That's really, we used to have to follow up 4 to 6 times on average to get updates from people like, hey, we can't go to market until we have your payroll. We can't go, and now we're getting it within a day. Like, we're very rarely following up twice. So what that means for our clients is it's easier for them to get us their updates. And then it also means that we're getting out to market earlier. So we have more options for them, and we're able to propose a month in advance. Because the other thing that's kind of typical in this industry is we're giving a business their insurance renewal 2 days before they renew, which I feel like is offensive to them, because they're like, oh, you're not even giving me an opportunity to look over this. I have to bind because we can go without coverage. So this way it sped everything up. So we're able to just propose, put everything to bed 3 weeks before the renewal. Certificates are out. No one has to stress about making a last minute decision. So that's been really big. And then the other thing is my husband happens to own a video production company, Quasmo Productions, shameless plug. And so he does a lot of like business videos, promo videos, and we find that we're constantly answering the same questions, specifically around workers' comp. Like, how do you report a claim? How does a final audit work? How do we deal with like these fraudulent claims? What's the process on fraudulent claims? Because we see a lot of fraudulent work comp claims. And so we're in the midst of shooting a video series for our clients. So we're happy to talk to them, but it's the same questions over and over. We want to get ahead of that. So when we send, the final audit information, there's also a video of like, why do we do an audit, how it works, how to fill it out, so that they're not having to go back and forth with us asking a lot of questions. It's already there, and then we're available if they have more questions. But that's something I'm excited about. I've been saying I'm going to do it forever, but with COVID, I'm like, I'm telling a lot of people so that I have to get it done, but we're in the midst of shooting all those videos.
I love it. I'm finding that video is becoming more useful in my business as well. And I've started recording videos to show my clients how to do simple things like on our enrollment platform and walk them through processes. So that's certainly an advancement. And with those two things, I'm curious. I'd love to circle back on this conversation a year from now. I think that what you're building is an entire what you're starting to build is an entire agency management platform that can be duplicated for other agencies in your business. And you may have an entirely other revenue stream and business model there if you share what you're doing with other agencies so that they can serve their clients as well. So
yeah, exciting. Hopefully it all works out as I hope it does, and I can resell it. That'd be great. That's a great idea.
See, there you go. There you go. Ideas being born. So I love to ask some personal questions in the preparation for the podcast. And I asked you about your biggest professional accomplishment. And one of the reasons your answer stood out is because a lot of people will share that they received an award or that they hit a certain revenue goal. And you shared something much more fundamental and much more personal. You said, getting to a place where I have the confidence to choose who I work with and only work with people I enjoy interacting with. And I love that so much because I find that that's something entrepreneurs don't talk about enough. And I think it is one of the best benefits of being an entrepreneur and running your own business is that if you keep that in mind, you get to pick the people that you want to work with, but the people you surround yourself with in an agency like yours, and also the clients that you work with. So tell me about the journey of figuring that out for you and how you stay mindful of that as you're running an agency.
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like there's a scarcity mentality that you have when you're like first starting. I mean, I'm an agency owner, but I'm also a producer. So I eat commission. I eat what I kill. I don't like have so I've got to go out and bring in new business. And you have this, I'll take anything. I'll deal with anybody. I just, there's not enough, I just kind of like, sure. I feel like anyone new in sales, you just kind of put up with a lot. And, what I feel like at this point in my career, I'm finally at a place where I don't have to work with people that, their risk management appetite does not align with ours, or they're just don't treat my people nice, or they don't treat me nice. And I feel like that's a, when you figure that out, that like, there's enough business out there. There's enough people that fit your niche, and just if you just focus on working with them and the ones that if there's somebody that the best feeling in the world is firing somebody, because when their phone rings and you see their name and you don't want to pick it up because it's like the worst, somebody else might fit great with them. And
right. So
I think that's been something that I feel just in the last few years, to be honest with you. I finally feel like, okay, I'm at a place where I don't need to work with you. I mean, I appreciate the business, and we're thankful for all the trust people place in us, but we don't want to work with people we don't like. And I don't want to work with people that look at me as a commodity, or, are going to treat me not how I don't think I deserve to be treated. So, or my team. So I feel that I wish I would have learned that earlier. And so if somebody's watching this and they're starting off, like, you don't have to work with the jerks, stick to it.
I totally agree with you. My sales mentor earlier in my sales career called that addition by subtraction. And that phrase has always stuck with me. I totally agree. If you see the phone ring and you feel that knot in your stomach because you just don't want to talk to that person, that's a really good sign that it's time to subtract them from your world. My husband calls that ruthless curation of your circle. And I think that, like I said, I think that's something that more entrepreneurs should take advantage of. And I think a lot of times you're right. You start out in the beginning, you have scarcity mentality. You want to take anybody that pays you on as a client. And a lot of people stay in that mentality and never have the ability to step back and go, oh, right, we're okay here. Let's be sure that we're working with the people that really enjoy working with us and that we really enjoy working with. And I think you brought up a phrase that's an entirely different conversation, but the difference between scarcity mentality and abundance mentality, I think is pivotal to that decision-making process. And you and I are both in Los Angeles. There's plenty of business here for all of us to work on. And when you can approach it from an abundance mentality standpoint, then you get the benefit of working with the people that you really enjoy working with. So
it's still hard to say no to the big ones, but
it is. But a lot of times you turn and look around at that and you go, oh, right. I took that because that was that was a big name, or that was one I had been working on for so long. I didn't want to give up that opportunity. And still it's the ones that flow that feel the best.
Absolutely.
So I gave you the opportunity to ask me a question, and honestly, very few of my podcast guests take me up on that offer. And I have the question here just because it's easier than you having to remember it. It was such a, I love this question so much. You asked me, what's your biggest takeaway from all the amazing women you've interviewed on the podcast? And what have you changed as a result of the relationships that you've built with Aligned Women? Whew. That's like a book. So maybe sometime in the future. But my biggest takeaways, I've been thinking about this for a couple weeks since you sent that to me. One of them is that someone else reflected back to me the most concise expression of what drives me with the whole Aligned Women organization. And it's become so important to me that I get goosebumps every time I say it. And it's now on the homepage of the new version of the Aligned Women website, which is just about ready to launch. She's a CPA. Her name's Wendy Barlin. She's been a guest on the podcast. Her episode is still in production. And she said, when women understand their finances, they have choices. And I still get goosebumps every time I say that, because it's so at the heart of what I feel and what I'm doing in terms of supporting women in business and helping them network more effectively and drive revenue to their businesses. That's why, because when women understand their finances and they have financial security and financial freedom, they have choices. And so to have her reflect that to me in our conversation is something that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. And then what I found in having all these conversations with women, because I like to ask what you still struggle with, the consistent response that I get from amazing women who have accomplished incredible things in their careers is that they wish they would have learned to trust their intuition sooner. And they still struggle with trusting their intuition in business situations. And that is a through line through almost every conversation that I've had with women. And I don't know that there's a solution to that. It is a learning process that I think we all have to go through. I've had conversations about intuition. I like to say that it's both mysticized and minimized for women. We learn that it's this magical thing that if we can just tap into it, we'll make better decisions and life will be so much easier. And on the other hand, it's minimized as this sort of, thing you can't necessarily rely on. And is it really always there? And so we're caught in this weird space where when we follow it and when we really listen to it, we do tend to make better decisions. And on the other hand, we don't always trust it. And I don't know the answer to that. But it's something I find that so many of the women I've talked to struggle with. Is that something that resonates with you? Has that been an experience that you've had?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I'm sure it has something to do with just being a woman. But I also think, being a third generation business owner, there's this, this thing has been built and no one screwed it up so far. And so that's where I think some of my second guessing comes from too, is okay, I feel very confident this is the direction we should go in. And I know this is a good thing and we are moving in the right direction, but I don't want to be the one to mess up this thing that's, now third generational. So there's that. And I'm sure it has some to do with being a woman, but also the pressure of keeping this business going positively in the right direction.
I totally, that totally makes sense to me. I can see how that would be an extra level of pressure, given that you have a legacy business. and that you are forward thinking and technology driven. And this is an entirely different world than it was when this business was built. You're also in an industry that tends to be, and I'm going to say it because you gave it to me and I'm going to carry it with me forever, male, pale, and stale, which I can't tell you how many times I've repeated that and given credit to you since you gave me that phrase.
I don't think I made it up. Somebody else.
No, you probably didn't, but you still get credit for sharing it with me. It's brilliant. And that's it. And that's its own pressure too, trying to figure out how to navigate all of this craziness. And yes, listen to your intuition and make good business decisions as a result. And like I said, I don't have a good answer for how that works. I notice that women who are further along in their careers tend to feel more solid in tapping into their intuition. Women who have a growth mindset, an abundance mindset, women who reflect and who journal and who meditate seem to have more of a handle on that. But it's a process, and it's a very individual process as we go through our careers. So that's what I've noticed. That's been my observation in talking to so many amazing women. And I've started to add a new question, and I'll throw this one at you, even though it wasn't part of our prep, which is, what do you think that we can do as women who have experienced some success, who've built our own businesses, who are in an industry, you and I, both health insurance and property and casualty insurance, that are still very male-dominated businesses? What can we do to reach a hand out to younger women who are coming into the industry, or even encouraging younger women to come into the industry, and make the process a little bit easier for them than it was for us? What do you think that we can do?
That's a good question. I feel like, as a generalization, the women that I know that are successful business owners, they are aggressive in not just waiting for an opportunity to arise. And I see that, when I talk to friends that are well educated and way overqualified for jobs. And I don't know if you ever read that book, Lean In, and it's like women, they'll apply for a job if they meet 95% of the requirements, and a man will if they meet 20% of them. So I think that just encouraging women to, if you want to do something, go ask some people. You don't feel like you have to have an invitation. You have to just take it. Go pick up the phone and call the president of whatever company or the HR director that you want to work at. Just because they don't have a job posting doesn't mean that they won't hire you. So I think that personality, and that's something I hope I can instill in my daughter. And my dad did a good job, and my sister and I, having that of just if you want it, ask for it. Somebody told me a quote recently. I can't remember where I heard it, but it was, if you aren't asking, then you're taking no for an answer. And I think that's something that we have as women that are trying to make it. That would be my recommendation.
I love that. I would say you use the word aggressive. Be more aggressive. Take more risks. Ask for what you want. As women who've had some success, the concept was introduced to me recently of not being a mentor, but there's a new evolution of that, which is being an advocate. Being an advocate for women. So you're not just sharing your experience, but you're actually actively helping other women navigate where they want to get to and advocating for them. And I think that that's a really powerful role that we can play to ask on behalf sometimes, right? If we have connections to a company or an organization where we know a woman wants to make inroads, we can ask on behalf of them and advocate for them. And that even all ties back to that fundamental idea that I was talking about of women having financial security. The ability, the comfort to take risks comes with being financially secure. So instead of feeling like, well, I'm never going to get this opportunity again, and I'm going to have to sort of play it straight, play by the rules, because this is I'm good where I am, but I don't want to lose it. It is something that we can let go of as we become more financially secure, which goes back to educational opportunities and job opportunities. And that ties into everything. So
Yeah.
it's really all part of that big picture. So let's talk about a business thing that I want to get your opinions on. You work on cyber liability insurance, and that is something that I think a lot of people have heard. It's almost a buzzword, but I don't know that a lot of people understand what that actually does and even how that can protect a business. And I would love to hear from you both a description of what cyber liability insurance does in general, and then also some of the examples that you've seen of actual application of that coverage to protect businesses when something goes awry. So tell me more about that.
Yeah. So cyber liability is a newer insurance coverage. When you're looking at like the history of insurance, it's been out a while now, but it was, since we've gone so high tech, every business is using the computers and some sort of, cloud-based, whatever. If you're using a point of sale system, you're a restaurant, you have data out there in cyberspace, and that can get hacked. And so the cyber liability policies, because technology is changing so quickly, the policies are also changing very quickly, what they cover, what they don't. And so they're getting more and more broad as we're seeing more and more cyber crime. But it protects you from anything cybercrime related. So any sort of data breach, any sort of, every business has an exposure. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're a machine shop and you have CNC machines, someone could hack into the CNC machines and, destroy. And this is a real thing we see. And we see all sorts of, and what happens is, let's say you own a restaurant and you pay for a third party point of sale system. You think, that's their business, not mine. I make food. But what happens is, if one of your, a couple of your patrons buy something and their credit cards get stolen, they're going to come to you, not to the third party. You're going to still have to notify everyone. You're going to have to. So the cyber insurance protects you from any loss of income, any loss of data. If all of a sudden you come in and your systems have been hacked, it will step in, and they have experts that will come in and, negotiate if it's ransomware, or help you get back on your feet. If it's data entry and you lost all of your data, all of a sudden they'll actually pay to have either your staff or people come in and like re-enter data. With COVID, we're seeing so many claims around cyber crime. I mean, and it's not just your computers. It also can be phone systems. Like, I had a client where people from Russia were hacking into an empty phone line in their system and making long distance phone calls, and they racked up like $100,000 in phone bills. And their phone provider wouldn't reimburse them for it. Like, they said, it's on you. And so that was a cyber claim that the cyber policy paid out. Another one that we just had recently this one was kind of crazy. An employee, the controller who did payroll, got an email from what looked like was from an employee saying, "Hey, I changed banks. Can you change my direct deposit to this bank account information?" So they changed it. The crazy part about this story, though, is that this person was a high wage earner. So I want to say they were making like $50,000 a month, and they didn't notice for 3 months that they didn't get paid. So talk about financially secure if you don't realize that you haven't got paid $150,000 in 3 months. So when they finally noticed, that was stolen. For cyber liability would come in, and it would pay for the lost wages because the employee didn't get paid, the employer was out that money. So that's what it covers, and it's super inexpensive. Like, at this point, you could get $1 million worth of coverage for less than $1,000 a year. Like, every business should have it, regardless of what you do. Yeah. And they're really targeting the small businesses. It's not the big guys anymore. It's the mom and pop. It's the small to mid-sized businesses. That's who these hackers are really going after. So super important coverage. I'm on my soapbox, but I think everyone should have it.
That was why I wanted you to talk about it, and I think the number of ways that businesses are exposed are infinite, and it just depends on the creativity of the hackers. Which some of the stories you just told are things
crazy.
I hadn't even considered. So, where can people get a hold of you and include information about the cyber liability insurance quotes if somebody's interested in looking at that coverage?
Cyber coverage is different. Like, they're not all policies are the same. So I recommend we happy to give quotes, but definitely, like, have the coverages explained, because you could get a quote that's $300, but it doesn't going to do much. We probably recommend one maybe that's a little bit more expensive, but not substantially, and have a lot better coverage. You can call me, you can email me. Do you want me to tell you all those things now, or do you have it in like, is there, look down here and there's my,
yeah, look down there, look in the show notes, and you'll be able to see all of the contact information for Dana.
All we need is a website and a annual gross revenue to get a basic quote. And also, most of the insurance companies we work with, as soon as they run a quote, they'll also do a scan, like a dark web scan of your website, and they'll be able to give you scores on like how you're doing from a cybersecurity standpoint now. And then they have resources that'll help you get better. But that's another part of the services. With the quote, you get a full scan of like, you have big issues in these areas.
So good to know. That's so valuable. And I love talking to you. We could just nerd out on insurance stuff for a long time. So I appreciate so much you taking the time to be on the podcast today, Dana. It's been delightful to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And look for more episodes with more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com. Thanks for listening to the Align Women Podcast. You can find more episodes with more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com and visit alignwomen.org to learn more about our leadership and networking organization. This is Amy Evans, and you've been listening to the Align Women Podcast.